Hey y'all, hey, it is me, it is your girl Nurse T, and I am coming to you with another video. But for those of you who are new to my channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. Do your girl a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, like the video. Actually, everybody, if you already just chimed in on this video, do your girl a favor, like the video, and also leave me a comment. Leave me a comment because you never know, your comment can inspire me to make my next video. So I wanted to make this video today because I had a person in my comments that asked me about float pool nursing, and they also mentioned that they were interested in float pool nursing as a new grad. And I think it's very, 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 very important that everybody who's a new grad who's thinking about float pool nursing, stay tuned. Okay, so let's just start off. For those of you who are new to my channel, let me just kind of give you some background on me. I started off in a post-operative neurosurgery unit. And before becoming a registered nurse, I worked on that unit as a patient care assistant. From a patient care assistant, I moved over and became a registered nurse. And so I basically still worked on that unit for an additional 2 years after becoming a registered nurse. Then I transferred to another hospital where I did med-surg, oncology, hospice. And then from that hospital, I went to another hospital where I'm doing currently float pool nursing. So currently in my role as a float pool nurse, I have had days where I have been placed in charge on certain floors. I also currently now, I am primarily like a nurse preceptor. If you don't know what a nurse preceptor is, I'll be making a video on that, explaining that more in details. So currently I precept either new graduates, nurses who've been nurses pretty much longer than me, or nurses who have been nurses for probably about the same amount of time as me. So precepting a new grad in the float pool was something that I kind of like raised eyebrows on, because I'm like, precept a new grad in the float pool? So I know, I'm not sure if this is something that's been going on. I personally never really heard of a new grad being in the float pool, but currently at my hospital, we are training new grads for the float pool. So the reason why I say that I kind of raised eyebrows at it is because usually the criteria to get into the float pool is you have to have an X amount of experience, being a nurse in general. Or shall I say, you will want an X amount of experience of being a nurse in general. Okay. So the reason why I feel that new graduates in the float pool was a bit concerning for me was because I felt like there's no foundation. Okay, so prior to becoming a nurse in the float pool, I had worked on a unit for many years. I feel like working on a unit, you are able to create a foundation. You're fresh out of nursing school. You want to get your feet wet, but you want to get your feet wet in a place where you feel like you can build a foundation first, if that makes any sense. I just felt like starting off in a float pool as a float pool nurse, I don't think you just really get that foundation. I can be wrong. If you see where I'm going with this, let me know in the comments if you're already a nurse, and let me know your take on being a new grad in the float pool, because I might not hit on everything, and maybe you can back me up, but I just feel like it's only fair for everyone to get an opportunity to have that foundation. And when I say foundation, I mean like you have staff that you grow into a family with. They kind of help you become more comfortable because you see the same familiar faces. You pretty much have the same routine. You kind of know, in particular with your specialty, the medications might be more routine. Just the day-to-day assignments will be more routine. And then you can have that continuity of care where you get a patient today, you might get them tomorrow, and you might get them the day after. So taking care of a patient consecutively, days in a row, you become more and more familiar with what to expect. You're familiar with them, you're comfortable with them. it just kind of gives you that sense that you belong to something, like you're a part of something, and then you have people who have your back. I'm telling you now, you're more susceptible to have someone to come up and help you with something that you're struggling with if it's someone that you're familiar with, it's someone that you created a bond with, it's someone that that y'all, pretty much like I said, y'all became a family. Now, don't get me wrong, as a float pool nurse and just being the nurse that I am, I gravitate towards a lot of people. So even in my position as a float pool nurse, they actually are comfortable and happy when they see me, because they know when they see me, they fit to get some IVs started, they fit to get some blood drawn, and teaching them a thing or two about their unit. But all of that is based off confidence that I have from being a nurse for so long. Does confidence come overnight? No. Does confidence come in the first month, 2, 3? No. Maybe not even 6 months. The first 2 years can be challenging years, but that's what I'm saying. But being a part of a unit where even if it's challenging, it's a challenge that you're aware of. It's a challenge that you became accustomed to. It's some fears that you give yourself the opportunity to conquer those fears and come out stronger, So, but when you in float pool, you might find them throwing you to the wolves, and you got to be ready to come back leading the pack. Okay. So, other than that was my main concern was about creating the foundation. So the next one that I have is, let's just say you're more prone to have anxiety. And we all know our little friend called anxiety. It can get the best of us. Okay. So to me, I used to get a form of anxiety when I felt like I didn't know something. When I felt like I wasn't competent and confident in something, it created anxiety for me. So in the float pool, you want to be pretty confident in what you're doing. They float you to this cardiac heart failure unit. When you get there, if they ask you to monitor you have a patient who have a chest tube, you have a patient that's on a heparin drip and you don't know how to manage that. You have a patient who's post a cardiac stent, angiogram, a valve replacement, or maybe they go to ICU for that, but just any type of a cardiac intervention, you want to be confident in what you're doing. Now, don't get me wrong. I always recommend and suggest you to ask questions. Whether you've been a nurse for years and you so happen to have to float to a unit and you're not comfortable with something, speak up. Speak up, because you're not helping your patient if you don't speak up. You have to be there to advocate for your patient. But I just feel like, feel that all of this is just basically to say, to me, I feel like it lessens the anxiety when you're familiar with it, because we typically fear the unknown. So if you're working on a unit where, let's say, after you graduate and you decide to go work a post cardiac unit, if you decide to go work a cardiac care unit, and you're there on that unit every single day, and you're there on that unit for a number of months, maybe a year or two, you kind of gain some insight about that unit. You're familiar with the procedures, you're familiar with the medications, the drips, the protocols, the whatever it may be. You're able to build that foundation for that unit and then leave and go to another unit or whatever. Or if, let's just say, if you was working med surg in general, you have that opportunity to experience chest pain patients. What are the protocols for that? If you have a patient that come in with shortness of breath and they have fluid volume overload, you kind of know what protocol we do with that. If you have a patient with congestive heart failure, you learn the protocol for that. So all I'm saying is that you just become more familiar with what your unit usually receives, which kind of in turn, it kind of alleviates that anxiety, if that make any sense. Now, by all means necessary, this video is really not to bash, discourage, or convince you to not become a new grad in the float pool nurse, in float pool nursing or whatever, but just to give you some insight of some of my thoughts as a preceptor. And I see new grads learning, completing their 3-month orientation, and then now they're thrown to go work these units, because you're not working the same unit every day. So that's my concern about that. So all of this that I'm saying, it basically leads to my third thing, which is being overwhelmed and having burnout so soon. Now, being a nurse in general, we typically, of course, even with the experience, we're overwhelmed. It is what it is. It's not as fun and glamorous as it looks, but we get overwhelmed and we go through burnout. But I just feel like experiencing all that stuff that I mentioned, it leads to burnout quick. Based on my experience with us basically starting this pilot, pretty much like a pilot program to see how many new grads we actually retain versus how many actually end up signing up to a unit and saying, okay, you know what? I'm just going to be honest with myself. I know that my intentions was to be a part of Float Pool, but as I can see, this is not the right route at this time. Perhaps I'll revisit this thought in the near future, maybe in the next year or two. But from my experience, let's just say our pilot program started off with 10. And out of the 10, only 2 are still left in the new grad program. Well, in the new grad Float Pool pilot program. And out of those 2 that are left, one was already a patient care assistant who was already familiar with Float Pool in general. Like she was already a Float Pool tech who floated to other units. So she was familiar and comfortable with being exposed to new personalities, new patients on a daily basis, new specialties every day. She already had that exposure. She just had to apply it as a nurse from a nursing standpoint. So we do the 3 months of orientation, and then from there, you just kind of hit the ground rolling. Then there was also one who did not work in the hospital, and she's thriving very well. So to each his own. Like I said, this video is not to discourage you, but just to give you more of an insight of what the majority of the new grads pretty much run into. But let's look at the brighter side of things. Looking at the brighter side of being a new grad in the Float Pool is everything that I mentioned pretty much in the other video, the pros of becoming a Float Pool nurse. Looking at the brighter side, you just got out of nursing school. So those skills that you had to spend numerous hours completing and getting checkoffs for and everything, you get to utilize those skills. You get to utilize all that handy dandy information that they said you would need to know. So you always would keep your knowledge, your skills that you just learned while they fresh. You'll keep putting those into play. You won't be like me, where I have worked so many years in other specialties and I have not touched postpartum. And honestly, when I was in nursing school, that was the least of my concern was postpartum, because I had stuff like critical care, surge. Those are the type of things that had my focus, that had my attention. Stuff like postpartum, maternity health, whatever, all that under the same umbrella, community, pediatrics. Those were kind of the things that I just kind of took the easy road, and I loosened up some of that stress that I had, because I'm like, I'm not going to stress over this. I'm stressing already over other stuff that I knew was critical, other stuff that they said would be things that can pretty much, wing out classes or whatever. But anyway, so let's look at the good things, like flexibility. Yes, there's a lot of flexibility. You're making your own schedule. If you want to have every spring break off you want, you got every spring break off you want. You ain't got to wait in line because you took spring break last year and now this person got to take spring break this year. If you want Christmas, if you want whatever holiday, you're in control. So anyway, so if you made it this far in this video, go ahead and thumbs up the video if you like the information that I shared. Leave me a question down below, comment on this video. If you have any topics you may want me to talk about, if it's something that I'm familiar with, I'll talk about it. If it's something that I feel like I don't know too much of, then I won't hit on it. I might just answer your question in the comments and I won't make a whole video on it. But I'm pretty much passionate about nursing. I'm passionate about people going after their dreams, their goals, not being discouraged. I told you before that the road for me to becoming a nurse wasn't like the easiest road, but when there's a will, there's a way. And anything you put your mind to, you'll do it. Like I said, I know of a person who I felt struggled personally in this program. However, she's still on it. She's still hanging despite of all the negativity that was thrown at her. She's not giving up because she know in her head that float pool nursing as a new grad is what she want to do. And all the experience, all the knowledge, all the confidence is not going to come overnight. But like I said, you give it some time, you have patience, you utilize your peers, your colleagues, and just make the best. And when you see that you're getting some clap back and some pushback and people are not willing to help you when you do become a new grad in the float pool, take it up a notch. Make sure you talking to the charge nurse on a unit. Escalate it. Talk to the manager. Talk to your manager. Talk to whoever next in the chain of command so that you can make sure you're getting the best out of your experience in the new grad pilot program. Until then, y'all, it's been real. Again, like, comment, subscribe, turn that notification bell on so that you never miss another upload from me. Until then, bye.